Hello, welcome to the Peaceful Woodturner. This is a wand that a friend was making that, they were carving it with a knife. And it's a harder wood than they were really expecting. They didn't have a whole lot of experience with wood. They have less than me, which tells you something. So what I'm going to do is try to work this down to something that's a little bit more in line with what they were thinking. I do have to make a couple of adaptations right off the bat because, as you can see, it's a little long. So I'm going to have to cut it down a bit. I'm going to take some off at each end just so that I don't make any part of it too short. As you can see, they were already thinking about having a handle here. They actually marked this part that they were going to get rid of anyway. So I'm thinking that I should be able to keep some of that so that I can put it into a chuck, hopefully, and just take the rest of this down, and then I'll start working on it. Alright, we're mounted up. I took a good bit off, and I have this in my chuck. It's got the variable depth of the jaws. So I just want to point out before I go too far on this, I follow the parameters on what the manufacturer says for what size these jaws can hold. It really looks like they're very far open, but the fact is that down in here where they're actually doing the holding, there's plenty of meat grabbing onto the wood, which is fantastic. The reason I point that out is just that it may look like things are really far apart, and I don't want you, if you are figuring out how to turn like I am and looking at this stuff, I don't want you to say, hey, he did it that way, I can do it that way. Look at what the instructions are, follow the parameters for what you're actually working with, be safe. If you're not sure, don't do it. Talk to somebody, find out more. I'm not a teacher, don't use me as an example. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm just going to start with my spindle gouge, my bigger, beefier spindle gouge, just to kind of take this down, smooth out some of this stuff, because there's all these little digs and gouges and stuff. And once I do that, I'll be able to switch off to my nice little skew, and I'll be able to work with that. The reason I have it in the chuck, by the way, I know it's basically a spindle turning and I could easily do it between centers, but the reason I have it in the chuck is because once I start getting into thin stuff, I find that I end up putting too much pressure on with my with my pin, and once that live center is pushed in too much, everything starts to kind of bow when I put any pressure on it at all, and then I fail dramatically. So let's get started. So I'm going to slow way down here. I've got it down to about 500 RPM, and I'm just going to sand up here on the handle. I want to get some of this stuff off. I'm going to be a little aggressive sometimes, and I just feel it's better that if I start working on this now, rather than when I have everything down here all nice and thin, and then I go to do it, and I put too much pressure on, and I snap something. I'm going to see if I can reset the camera angle a little bit just so you can see over here at this end, because this is where I'm going to start working now. So, hope you don't get seasick. There we go. Should be able to see it. And most of the work's going to be going on in this area, but I just wanted to make sure you could see the edge. So I've got this all sanded down. Everything's feeling pretty nice. Now this is going to be kind of a little finger, thumb space right here. So as you're holding it, your hand is going to kind of settle to there. And because of that, I have this silver wire that actually comes from the mother of the owner of the wand. And I thought it'd be nice to just kind of wrap that in there and give a little bit of a connection all the way through. So what I'm going to do now is just work on this end and start thinning everything down. I want to get it kind of fine. See if I can get it down to something finer than I've done before. And I'm going to be going a bit faster now. I'm going to be going at right around 2000 RPM, 2050. I'm kind of excited. I actually got that down pretty thin. Very few tool marks end up in this section. I notice when I start pressing a little too hard, I end up getting some, just straight lines in this. So I'm getting a little bit better with that control, the tool control. Did a bunch of really gentle, light touches there. Hardly anything was coming off, but just enough. Tiny little curly cues. These are really cool, tiny little curly cues. So next thing to do is to do a little bit of sanding and finishing, and then I'll do my wrapping. I'm going to slow everything down a lot, and then I'll get going. Down around 500 RPM. Going to start with the 220 just to take off the roughest stuff, and then I'll just start scaling down. So here's the wire that I'm going to wrap on. This is some sterling silver wire, and I have this tiny little drill bit. It's actually a 3/64 bit. It's supposed to be for a rotary tool, but believe it or not, even with the smallest collet for the rotary tool, it won't fit. But it will fit my big honking drill. So go figure. And I did a little test. I drilled a tiny little hole in a piece that I cut off, and this is exactly right for the wire to fit into. And the idea is that I'm going to drill a little hole, put the wire into it, and then just steadily wrap it around. So I think that is a good starting point right there. And I've done this before with some other stuff, similar technique anyway, and I found that it works pretty well, and it holds even without any adhesive, which is good because I'm trying to limit the chemicals and other things that I'm putting on here that are not just naturally occurring. The mineral oil that I used earlier is kind of bending that rule a little bit, but knowing that mineral oil is food safe, I'm going to allow myself to consider it to be acceptable. Previous ones I have used vegetable oil, which has worked well, but you always have the danger of it going rancid. I don't want to take a chance with that. So I think when I finish this, I'm probably going to finish it with beeswax. The person using this wand does not consider beeswax to be what they call acacia. Basically trying to avoid using things that are from animals, especially if the animals did not voluntarily give it. Beeswax is in one of those gray areas that they make excess of wax and honey, not specifically for anyone else, but just because that's kind of how they operate. And the place I get the beeswax from happens to be a place that is working very hard to save honeybees, who are, as you probably know, experiencing some very serious problems. And they also make really good honey. As a matter of fact, the person who I'm fixing up this wand for actually got me the beeswax that I'm using today. So I figure they're probably okay with it. Alright, that's looking like we're getting right to the end. And now that I've got it wound on all nice and tight, I'm going to end up letting it go. But I know that I'm going to go right about there. Now I'm going to cut this off, and then I should be able to just make a little bit of a hook to go in there and get all the tension back. Excellent. That is in there nice and tight. That's going to be really good. So I'm just going to give it one last buff and then put on the beeswax. Good. Time to cut it off and just finish the ends. There we are. Little sanding on the ends, finishing up the tip, will be good. And there we go. I hope they like it. Thank you for joining me on the Peaceful Woodturner.